And we're back with another episode of What the Shell podcast. Hey guys, it's me again, Swamp Life Reptiles, Cody Shepard. Ed will be on in just a few minutes. He had to make some last minute stops. If you guys don't know, there's a tropical storm that's going to be hitting South Florida and the coast of Florida in the next couple of hours leading into the weekend. And so Ed had to make a last minute stop for that. I'm pretty excited. Today's guest is someone that I reached out to a while ago and was really excited to get onto the podcast. It's an individual that I didn't actually know until I reached out to him. However, I had seen his posts through social media, through things like Fauna and King Snake, and that's Ryan with Southern Reptiles. I think it's pretty amazing, not only the quality of the animals that he works with, but obviously you can tell the care and thought that he puts into his animals. And so I really wanted to get Ryan onto the podcast today to talk about that idea of going from a hobbyist to a business owner. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and add Ryan to the stream. Ryan, how you doing, man?
Good, man. How's it going?
Good, man. I'm glad you came on and joined us today. We're happy to have you. I say we like Ed is over here, but he's not on here yet. But he will be in a second. So when he magically pops up, do not be alarmed.
No worries. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This is actually my first time ever doing a podcast or even a live podcast, that is. So I appreciate you having me on. And I've kind of been in the hobby for about 18 years now, I would say. I started when I was about 11 or 12 years old, I would say. And over time, that hobby kind of just very slowly morphed into a full-blown business, which I've been very blessed in a lot of ways. And it's a lot of fun. And I feel like I don't ever feel like I'm working, because this is something that I would be doing either way, whether it was just a business or a hobby or both. So yeah, thanks for having me. And
we're excited. I feel like I kind of told you this while we were waiting. I kind of feel like there's a lot of people who see amazing, reptiles. In our case, at least from my knowledge of what you keep, we'll say turtles as a turtles and tortoises. They see these amazing animals and you buy it and you're like, all right, I need a male and a female, and I'm gonna have eggs and I'm gonna become a reptile seller. And I think that a lot of people don't realize necessarily what happens between point A, buying this animal or hatching this animal, and then point B, reproducing and making it lucrative.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of points between those. I sometimes get people who message me. Basically, they want me to give them kind of an outline on how to breed turtles and tortoises. And a simple answer would be just give them a good home, keep them happy, and happy turtles and tortoises or any kind of animals breed and they reproduce.
Right.
But for me, I mean, it's been many years, so it's kind of a long story, but I actually got into turtles and tortoises through one of my good friends growing up that I went to school with. His dad, without getting into names and everything, but his dad was actually a pretty well-known breeder of radiated tortoises from Madagascar, and he lived down the street from my parents. And I was about 10 years old, and I was playing in the backyard with my friend. We were actually throwing a football around, and I happened to actually stumble upon a RedFoot tortoise walking in the grass. He was breeding Redfoots, Yellowfoots, Radiata, a few other species, and a ground hatched Redfoot. Here in South Florida, hatchlings will hatch naturally in the ground, and this baby got out of the hatched naturally, got out of the enclosure, and I found it walking in the grass. And up until this point, I didn't have any tortoises, but I kind of I think he saw, my friend's dad saw that I had a love for them. So he basically said, you know what, you found this tortoise, you can keep it, it's yours. And he spoke to my parents. He didn't just give me the animal and send me home with it, but he talked to my parents, and my parents said, yeah, he can have it. And my parents have always been very kind of supportive for my love for animals as a kid. And I had all
Right.
kinds of, I had sugar gliders, I had ducks, I had hamsters, turtles. I mean, small aquatic turtles. I had a lot of different things, a few species of snakes like ball pythons and garter snakes. And so I got this tortoise, and I think I was 11 years old maybe. And that one tortoise kind of slowly multiplied. And I ended up I had 4 RedFoot tortoises by the time I would say I was probably 14. I had 4 now, and it just so happened that 2 were males and 2 were females. And
My luck.
yep,
Complete luck.
Yeah, and I mean, if they would have ended up, say, all being males or all being females, I maybe I would have never gotten into breeding them. But I gave them a good home, and I probably made mistakes in the beginning, like many people do when they first own animals, and there's no perfect way to do it. But they started breeding, and I kept them outside. And here in South Florida, the climate is just ideal for especially for RedFoot tortoises. It's just the high humidity, the long summers, and the pretty much the heat we have all year round here is ideal for them. And they started breeding, and I actually didn't even know they were laying eggs until I think one day me and my dad were outside, and we actually started finding hatchling Redfoots walking around in the enclosure, and we were like, oh, we didn't even know they were laying eggs. And that's how I figured out that they were. And after that, I just let things happen. Nature finds a way, and nature takes its course. And they kept breeding, and I would find the babies, and I started getting into, I would sell them on Craigslist and take the money that I would make on Craigslist, and I would buy more tortoises with it, basically, or put the money towards building a new enclosure or buying food for them and things like that. As you know, I mean, it can be expensive at times, buying a lot of food, and if you want to keep them healthy. So yeah, I started taking that money and basically putting it back into the hobby per se. And it's just
a friend of mine had told me the ultimate dream for a turtle keeper, or should be when you're able to what's the word I'm looking for, where you're able to the money you make is able to pay for your turtles. So instead of
self-sufficient, basically.
Yeah, self-sufficient. So when you want to get a new species, instead of coming out of pocket, you want to ideally be able to sell hatchlings or something else that you have multiples of to pay for your new species, so that the hobby is paying for itself. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yeah, basically, yeah. And I don't want it to sound like that, like I have to have turtles that make me money. But if I want to be able to provide them a good home, it's ideal to have animals that reproduce, that I can essentially take that money and put it back into their care and everything that it's required for them. So yeah, I mainly stick with species that I'm able to reproduce. That's not to say that I reproduce every species I keep, but so it slowly evolved, and I started with the Redfoots, and I started getting into cherry heads, and then yellowfoots, and I love the Brazilian cherry heads. I have a group of 4 males and 6 females, adults, and some of them are some of the most beautiful cherry heads. It's been years of kind of finding a group of cherry heads and that's ready to go is like almost impossible. So it's been kind of puzzle pieces that have been put together over the years, and now it's almost complete. Or I don't know if it'll ever be complete, but and they're doing well, and I've produced some really, really beautiful cherry heads that I've been able to sell to people that have some amazing marbling and some amazing bright, vibrant red heads. And some of my adults that are kind of hard to come by. They actually have the bright red head with the bead yellow eyes, the bright yellow eyes that are beautiful. And yeah, so it went from those to just many other species to now where I breed and keep now about a dozen species roughly.
You went up.
From pancake tortoises, I have 2.10. Anybody who doesn't know what that means, 2 males and 10 female pancake tortoises. And they're all proven egg layers. I was blessed that a good friend of mine, Robert Cross, who's kind of like a Jedi Knight with tortoises, but he helped me. He got me this group of pancake tortoises that he put together over the years, and yeah, I've been doing well with breeding the pancake tortoises, and I recently got a group of Russian tortoises, maybe a little less than a year ago, from Chris Leone at New Jersey Garden State. Yeah, and I got pretty lucky with those and got a lot of eggs out of them almost immediately. And a lot of people say, well, Russian tortoises, you can't breed those in South Florida, but they do well. And there's been other people who have had success with them too. So that's why I didn't write them off as impossible to breed in South Florida. But yeah,
I guess we had on 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan, he works in Fort Myers. He works with Russian tortoises, and Fort Myers is technically South Florida, just the other side of the state.
Yeah, Jordan, I don't know well, but I know who you're speaking of. Yeah.
So he said the way he got his Russian tortoises to breed is he cools them down. He puts them in the refrigerator.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm trying to decide for this coming, winter that we have in South Florida, whether I'm gonna cool them down or leave them out in the winter, because they can survive the winter here. It does not get that cold. So
right.
So yeah, I'm trying to decide if I want to do like an artificial brumation and cool them down, or if I'm going to just leave them outside and let them do their thing. So it'll be probably, trial and error, and I'll see how they do. And that's why I love the RedFoot so much, is they love the warm weather, but they also are very cold tolerant. And I don't say that so people will leave their tortoises out in the cold all the time, but they can handle pretty cool temperatures. I've left my adults out in about 55-degree weather, maybe for one night. If it's a few nights in a row, then I won't. But if it's one night of 55 and then it's warm during the day again, I've done that a couple times and I've had no issues. I wouldn't recommend doing that with a younger tortoise, but with a full-grown adult, I haven't had any problems. Yeah. So yeah, the hobby just I just kept going with it. And then about 3 years ago, I was just like, I really had always wanted to kind of get more officially into the business side of selling reptiles, and just from my love of it, anything that I'm like infatuated with, as whatever it is, any kind of hobby, I do it to an extreme, and that can be bad or good in some cases, but the love for it. So I finally said, you know what, I want to try this as a business, and I started getting into it, and I met my girlfriend and now my wife at the time, and she's luckily. It's funny, when we went on our first date, my wife, we were sitting down at I think it was like PDQ or something, one of those restaurants, and we were sitting down eating, and she said to me, tell me one thing about you that I don't already know, or something like that, and she'll even tell you that I said that. I actually said to her, I think I told her I love reptiles, or I love tortoises, or something like that. And she kind of like laughed at me at first, but I don't think she knew how serious I was at the time. And I've been blessed. She's been very supportive of, and she was the one who kind of pushed me too to make that leap from the hobby into the business. And she said, chase your dream. And for a while it was a lot of work. I was working 2 jobs, and I used to work as a computer, like an IT technician, hardware technician at hospitals in South Florida, like in Broward County. And it was a lot, man. I would go to work for 9 hours, 10 hours a day, get off, have a few orders every day to ship out. And I was starting to get burnt out working those two jobs. And when my wife got pregnant, and right around the time my son was being born, I finally just said, you know what, and I had friends and my wife kind of saying, to do it, you love this so much, give it a shot. And I just said, I'm gonna just leave my full-time job and go try to do this as a career,
Right.
and that was recent. That was about a year ago that I decided to do that. And it's been well since. I mean, it's been successful enough. I mean, I'm not rolling in money by any means, but it's growing, and I'm able to take money and put it back into my business. And I try to just kind of pride myself on doing a good job with this thing. So I really love it.
I believe when we were talking in the lobby before we started, you had started to tell me about how Facebook was kind of your platform for most of your sales. Can you kind of elaborate on how you started with Craigslist and like how that development has changed to where you are now with your different platforms?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Well, when like I already spoke on, I started on Craigslist, and Craigslist is still popular. I don't know if it's as popular as it used to be, but it's still okay. But and then I got into like Fauna Classifieds, which is like an eBay for reptiles kind of, and kingsnake.com. And I still use those to this day. But at one point I went on Facebook and I found a lot of these groups that people would go and talk about turtles and tortoises. And I kind of said to myself, I was like, wow, there's not really that many people advertising on Facebook. There's really not. I mean, I was kind of like an untapped market at the time. And I kind of just took it and ran with it. And I started posting a lot of ads in different groups on Facebook. And it was very successful. And I mean, to this day, I still, not all of my business, but a good portion comes from Facebook and Instagram and platforms like that. But for a little bit there, it was kind of scary because at one point Facebook, they suspended my account. I think, hey, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's happening?
They suspended my account 2 or 3 times at one point, and I kind of said to myself, I said, "Is this gonna work? I don't know. Am I be able to keep doing this? Because if they're going to keep suspending my account for selling live animals, how am I going to be able to advertise on Facebook?" And luckily, knock on wood, fingers crossed, they've allowed me to have a business page like many people do, and they haven't gotten rid of that, and they've allowed that. And as far as
there was an option for pet breeder, so that leads me to the assumption that they want you to do it more like legally, like don't
exactly. Yeah, they want people to kind of be more official instead of just jumping into a group and throwing out a post that you're selling animals and then it's a free for all. So as long as I guess you have the business page. And I've also noticed that if you post a website, they don't really bother you that much either. Like if you refer somebody to your website, they don't suspend you because of that. So I also have a website as well. So that's what I've done, is kind of recommended people to that. And yeah, so it was scary for a little bit, man. I didn't know. I was like, I put in all this work, and am I going to like suddenly get booted off of Facebook and that's all gone, because a lot of people did. There were people that they put, like you just told me, you put groups together. People had 10,000, 15,000 members in these groups, and it's like the flick of a switch. So out of nowhere, Facebook just says, bye, you're done, and it's a lot of work, and that years of work that people have put into it, and it was unfortunate, but I was lucky that I kind of survived it, and I survived the 30-day jail sentence that Facebook put me in. It was hard time, but I survived it, and I got out, and just I kind of am a little more discreet, and I just refer people to my business page a lot. So that's and I love having the Facebook business page. I post probably 2 to 3 videos a day on that of just me, playing around with the turtles and tortoises, and it's fun. Yeah.
Do you think?
Let me ask. Go ahead, Ed.
No, I was trying to jump the gun, but I kind of almost had a question as far as, do you think it was actually a benefit that even though a lot of people might see it as a negative, that it almost weeded a lot of people out that probably shouldn't have been doing maybe, they would have, but it almost the people that were like legit,
Yeah.
pure and motive of heart like you doing it, it excelled you to be able to find a niche and, do things that you normally wouldn't have had to if you weren't pushed into that scenario to be, a little bit more official. And it actually helped you and it got rid of, and weeded a lot of other people out that,
Yeah. I mean, one thing I learned a long time ago, and I mean, I don't have any kind of, major in business or anything like that, but a lot of things that come down to business is it's adapting. When the water rises, you either float or you sink, and that's you adapt with the times. And a lot of businesses that fail, it's because they fail to adapt.
they don't want to re-innovate themselves.
Exactly. So I guess maybe I'm just I'm good at adapting, and I just kind of found a way. And yeah, I think it did maybe kind of weed some people out, and some people that were, just jumping on Facebook and selling a turtle that they found in their backyard, and
Yeah.
which is beneficial for sure. I mean, a lot of people don't even know that you're supposed to have a permit to sell reptiles. A lot of people don't know that. They think.
Yeah.
A lot of people think you can just jump on Facebook and sell a reptile, and you're not. You're supposed to have a permit to do so. So maybe those changes definitely probably weeded people out, and I think it, like you said, just kind of gave some people a niche, and I was probably one of those people.
Let me ask you this: you kind of mentioned permitting to selling reptiles. Do you have multiple permits, or do you just typically are you just a class 3 holder?
I have a class 3 for public sale, which is a little bit different from the regular class 3. I think there's two different.
There's a free one, and then there's the one you have to pay for. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I have the one that you have to pay for every year, and a lot of people think that FWC doesn't check on that stuff, but luckily, I had all my ducks in a row a few months ago. FWC actually contacted me, and the guy was actually very, very nice. He was a great guy, and he called me and said, "This is such and such from FWC," and I was just over at the FedEx ship center, and I saw you were shipping out a bunch of boxes, and we're just kind of doing our generic protocol where we're checking for shipments and seeing if people actually have their class 3 permit. And he said, do you mind if we can get together? And he actually came out and asked me if I had my class 3 permit. And I import tortoises as well from outside the United States. So he wanted to make sure that I actually had my U.S. Fish and Wildlife permit. You talked about multiple permits. So yeah, I have the state permit from FWC, and then I have the federal permit from U.S. Fish and Wildlife to import. I've imported from Suriname, Colombia, Mauritius. I'm looking into importing from Europe soon, and so it is.
Is that a long process?
Yeah, it is. Just applying for the permit, and it takes some money. You got to pay for it. But if you build it, they will come. So I just got the permit out, in hopes that I would, start finding people to import from, and I linked up with a few different exporters, and I've used it multiple times. The first one I used it the first time was I imported 15 Aldabra tortoises from Mauritius, which is a small island. The shipping alone was like $3,000 on the shipment. It was cool getting to import some captive born, beautiful Aldabra tortoises that are from like very pure bloodlines found in these little, atoll, small islands, in the middle of the ocean. Yeah, it was pretty cool. They actually flew the tortoises from Mauritius to Turkey, and then from Turkey to Miami, and then I drove to Miami and picked them up. And yeah, it was a stressful experience. You know, you're kind of, I didn't know what I was doing at first. Now I've gotten pretty good at it, but I was calling up this agency and they were saying, call these people and you need to have this, this, and this, and you need to file this document, have this permit, you need to do all these different things. And at one point I almost said, like, man, I'm like, this is, I think that's why a lot of people don't import, because it's a lot that goes into it. My head was spinning and I was like, man, this might be this might be too much. And now I kind of have it down, and I use a customs broker that clears the tortoises for me, so that makes things a lot easier as well. So yeah.
Hey, if you don't mind, we have a question from the viewers. I'm going to post it on the screen. I don't want to treat you like you're 5, like you can't read or anything, and it's kind of long.
Okay.
So I'm going to post it.
Oh, Nick, yeah, he actually just bought tortoises from me. With all the work you put into the specific breeds you specialize in, what would you change if you could go back and redo something different with the business of breeding? Any advice to us out here for focusing on specific things as well? What would I change? I mean, I don't like to change anything because I think I wouldn't be where I'm at, you know, if everything didn't happen the way that it did. If I could change one thing, I guess it would probably be, actually, I think one thing I could change would be if leopard tortoises were easily kept in South Florida. I think one of the biggest struggles I've had would be leopard tortoises. They're difficult to keep in South Florida. I've been lucky that I've got a few that were born and raised in Florida, and they've been acclimated to the heavy humidity that we have here. But I've had a couple, unfortunately, that passed away. And, you know, I don't know for sure if it was from the humidity, but yeah, I've had some difficult times with that species. And yeah, if I could change that, that would be one thing. But you know what? I have some beautiful leopards today, and I produce some, and they're a fun species to work with. You know, so I hope that answers your question, Nick.
Hey, don't you have a leopard?
Yeah, I got one. She's only, I have yet to find out, only 3 years old or going on 3. So what's usually the average time frame that you can usually tell sexing, you know, a tortoise, or even specific, you know?
On any tortoise, or specifically a leopard, it's
let's say leopard.
Usually 4 years old is usually kind of like an average age for most species. Yeah.
And then it's about double that time for maturity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that kind of a lot of people ask me if I have like a lot of competition with selling tortoises, and I think the benefit to how long it takes to breed them is beneficial, because a lot of you don't kind of have the fly by night people that come in and say, like, and we talked about this briefly, that, you know, I just want to breed tortoises and I want to do it now. It's a long-term commitment, and you're talking years to raise them up, years for them to start breeding. It could be years till you get viable eggs, and then, you know, working on hatching them and everything. So it's
totally invested.
Yeah, it's a big investment. I don't know if a lot of people would invest that much time unless you truly love it, like I do, and you guys probably do, you know. And that's it's a lot that goes into it. And I think that's why there's other, and not to knock anybody, but like ball pythons and bearded dragons and things like that, the turnaround rate is a lot quicker. You know, you hatch a ball python, and 2 years later it's ready to breed, and then you get more, and it's a quick turn.
So you started from bare none?
I started young, doing it about 11 years old. I got my first.
Wow.
Yeah, so I guess you could say I've been in the business that long, but it started as a hobby, and little did I know that I was kind of investing slowly but surely into my business. And I'm not so much all into the business. I love it just as a hobby, and I'm also kind of, I really down the road would like to get into more of the conservation side. I really want to try to do some work in maybe the next couple of years with Florida box turtles. I think Florida box turtles are, we have the gopher tortoise and the Florida box turtle that are both very protected in Florida, but I think people are they gravitate more to keeping Florida box turtles because of their size. When you find a gopher tortoise, it's this big tortoise, and you're like, well, the average person wouldn't know what to do with a tortoise that size. But with the Florida box turtle, it's so small that a lot of people just take them. And I don't think a lot of people know that we have a native box turtle to Florida. So they find this box turtle, they go, oh, I just found some tortoise walking across the road, and they don't know, and then they keep it in a glass aquarium for the rest of its life, and it's a shame. So I would like to try and do some work in the next couple of years, maybe establishing a group. I have a 1.1 of Florida box turtles right now, but I would like to, with the permission of FWC and whatever other agency, get a group together and try to do some captive breeding and release some of the hatchlings into, maybe wildlife management areas or state parks or something like that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. You want to go ahead, Ed?
No, I was gonna say. So I don't know. I jumped in a little late, but so you do it full time, or is it still a hobby?
Yeah, no, I do it full time. We got into that. In short, I was working 2 jobs, and my wife and some friends and my parents kind of pushed me they said, well, you're doing well with it. And my son was born, and I wanted to kind of have a little bit more free time to be there for my wife and my son, and also follow my dream at the same time. And so I stopped working my original full-time job and just went full-time about a year ago. I did that. Maybe a little bit less, so 10 or 11 months ago.
So it took up until the beginning, I mean, what would you say the time frame? I mean, I know as a kid it took that long, but when you really started getting into it and you had a good, how many, groups going before you actually were consistently.
Yeah, by the time I actually formed an LLC and got the licenses and built my website and business page, I already had probably 30 to 40 tortoises at that time. And now, I mean, I don't want to freak my wife out. No, I'm kidding. She knows how many I have, but I don't know, adults, I probably have around 120 adult tortoises, and then hatchlings and juveniles.
How much land do you have?
Enough. Yeah, enough. But yeah, I'm actually trying to, in the next year, hopefully move to a bigger property up about 45 minutes north of me, up to the Loxahatchee, Jupiter Farms area.
Yeah, so that's not very far from me, man. Up by McCarthy's Animal Sanctuary and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not far from there. Yeah,
You're still way just south of me anyway.
Yeah, just down here. I mean, I'm blessed to have a decent amount of property, but it's expensive down where I'm at in Boca Raton, Deerfield area. It's pricey.
How you doing?
Yeah, a lot of people want to live down here, and the demand for the property is very high, and that drives the cost up. So I'm looking to go a little bit north where the property value is about half of what it is up here, and hopefully be able to take my money and double my land, because I'm always kind of thinking about the future and trying to, what am I going to need in the future? And I'm looking to try to get into more aquatics. I'm looking to hopefully dig some ponds and small ponds and little lakes and things like that to start breeding more aquatic turtles. So, yeah.
Let me ask you this. You talked about branching off into getting into aquatics. You mentioned some Florida box turtles. I'm curious, and maybe the viewers are curious, what species do you currently keep?
Right now for aquatics, I don't keep much. I have Mata Mata turtles, which is one of my favorite aquatics. And then I have a few sliders like Florida red bellies, yellow bellies, Rio Grande sliders, things like that. But that's about it. Not much with the aquatics, and not that I don't like the aquatic turtles. It's a little bit more work, the aquatics, actually, from what I've found. And that's why I'm hoping as I get a little bit more property, I would like to do the natural in the ground ponds. And I think it's a little less upkeep than it is with, like, say, the waterland tubs and things like that. You know?
Yeah. With your tortoise and box turtle species, what do you keep in regards to those?
I have, as far as box turtles go, I have Chinese box turtles. I have Florida box turtles. And then for tortoises, I have spider tortoises, radiated tortoises. I have RedFoot. And I have multiple localities. I have the cherry heads. I have Colombian redfoots, Venezuelan redfoots. I have yellowfoots, elongated, Indian stars, Burmese stars, leopard tortoises. I'm sure I'm missing something. Herman's tortoises and Russian tortoises, and I think that covers it. I might have forgotten one or two, but yeah.
You have another question from the viewers. I'll go ahead and post for you if you don't mind answering.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Let's see.
Okay. Phyllis, any advice for a dominant male redfoot showing aggression to another younger male redfoot? Notice it more at the feeding time. Okay, so you have two males that are aggressive and more towards feeding time. Well, right now we're in the heart of the summer, so the males are gonna be more dominant because this is their predominant breeding time, is in the middle of the summer, especially with the redfoots that this hot in the humidity. They love to breed right now. But honestly, as much as people probably don't want to hear it, but that if they're just as pets, you might want to consider separating them. But if if they're in a group, it just happens. And I mean especially if you're breeding, a lot of breeders know that dominance is what drives the tortoises to breed. And when you have one male by itself, it won't breed very much. But when you put a second male in with him, it'll
competition.
Yeah, that competition is what makes them breed.
We all like that, right?
Yeah,
it sounds like the nightclubs, man.
Yeah, exactly. In the South Florida nightclubs, exactly.
Right.
But and that they say that also increases the fertility too when they have that competition. But yeah, I would just I wouldn't make any rash decisions. I would just kind of keep an eye on them and kind of supervise it. And if they're aggressive, I would say if they start actually drawing blood, you might want to consider separating them. But if there's no actual bloodshed, it's not very harmful. These tortoises are very hardy animals. You could see examples of a turtle getting hit by a car and surviving it with shell damage and living another 20 or 30 years, a minor scratch or bite. And that doesn't mean I'm telling you to let your tortoises hurt each other, but use your discretion and if you have to separate them. But that's very common with species of tortoises.
But even the time frame, you said given the time frame, so even if it dies down a little bit, it's like, okay, it was just a season.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you said, did you still have the Aldebras then? Because you said you got a lot in.
Yeah, I actually know I sold all of them, and I wanted to keep some. I would have loved to have kept some, but it was more of a business decision to sell all of them. And probably down the road, I will keep some Aldebras and raise them up to adult size. But they were very fun to have for the time being that I had them. I imported, I think it was 20 of them, and they were about 4 to 5 inches. And man, they're such an awesome tortoise, and they're so fun, and they
grow up pretty quick too, right?
What's that?
They grow up fairly quickly too, right?
They do, yeah. They grow very, very fast, yeah. And I believe they're the second largest to the Galapagos tortoise, if I'm not mistaken.
So.
Yeah, and they grow very fast, and they eat a lot of food. And
like, what would you say growing really fast? Because like I got my leopard and she was, a hatchling, and then at 3, she's hefty, but she's, still like,
Yeah.
fairly small. What would you say as far as growth rate for if
Um,
you feed consistently and you're pretty on it as far as
if,
that concerned?
if you're, yeah, I mean, if you're feeding them a pretty good diet, I mean, they should probably double to triple in size every year pretty
Wow.
consistently. Yeah, they grow very, very fast. Double to triple their size every
And do
year.
they ever slow down once they hit like a
Yeah,
maturity, and then they'll start kind of just
yeah.
little
I
by
I think once they kind of hit the maybe like the subadult, juvenile subadult size, they kind of plateau on growth. But from that hatchling size to that juvenile subadult, man, they grow very, very fast. Yeah.
Now, do you because given the fact of tortoises and especially outside and just do you go, and I don't know if you answered this early on, but do you go natural as far as like growing your own stuff, like
I
produce?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I'm pretty blessed that I've been fortunate. I have a farmer's market that's about 10 minutes from my house that I go in there, and they'll have a box that they kind of
Mm.
all the trimmings and greens that are kind of getting soggy. They throw it all in a box and they just give it to me, and then they also have a 50% off box where they kind of stuff that's starting to get old that people might not buy to eat for human consumption. They throw it in a box and it's 50% off. So I get like big heads of romaine lettuce for like 99 cents and or free sometimes. And yeah, so I buy that about twice a week. I'll do that where I get it free and some 50% off. And then I'll buy some occasionally if I'm in a hurry. I'll buy some produce from like Walmart or something like that. But most of I grow a lot of stuff. I try to be somewhat self-sufficient with foods. I grow a lot of like dwarf bananas, hibiscus leaves. I grow a lot of cactus, which I sell on my website. I grow papaya. I don't know if you said guava, but I grow guava. And I also a lot of weeds and things like that too. I'll feed, and I also grow like cocoa plum, which is a native food for gopher tortoises. So other species will eat that too.
On top of them just grazing too,
Yeah, on top of them grazing, eating.
You probably don't need a lawnmower with 100-something tortoises.
The question as far as when you're talking about treats go, with some of the considered treats for tortoises, like it's not good for them with hibiscus and a lot of stuff that you consider like not like their main diet. How do you work those into their diet like weekly? Is it like a once a week
Well,
thing or like?
yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask me that question as far as feeding and things, but a lot of it is just comes down to variety. As long as you feed in variety, you can't really overfeed something, and you won't really have any issues. So I try to just feed as much variety as possible. A lot of the problems are that we feed a lot of very calorie dense foods, and in the wild, these tortoises just don't find that kind of food so readily available. So um, I even do. I'll do days where I skip a day of feeding, and it really helps. A lot of people are like hear that and they're like, "Oh my God, skipping a day of feeding! How will my tortoise survive?" But in the wild, these animals sometimes for 2, 3, 4 days at a time if something happens, if maybe a predator scares them or anything. And so I just try to feed a lot of variety and just not overdo it on any set food. And with like say the cactus, they love the opuntia cactus that I grow, but if you overfeed it, it could really kind of soften the stool a lot because it's so watery. It's almost like tomato kind of. But yeah, and then I also incorporate like Missouri tortoise diet. I use a lot. I actually had the South Florida rep Mark out here to see all my tortoises, and so I buy a lot of Missouri tortoise diet products and I sell that on my website. And yeah, it's just
So I'm going to give you my bag. I finally found a person I got to give my bag to, because I get the Aquatic Missouri, and for some reason when I ordered it and I got tortoise, I'm like, crap, what am I gonna do with this? I was like, I got one tortoise, so I got a 40-pound bag. So, dude, it's yours somehow, some way.
I definitely used it. You're in Vero, right? I come up that every once in a while. My wife, her family's up in like Titusville, Melbourne, up that way.
Yeah, keep me posted. What about so what? You probably early answered this early on before I was here, but what drew you to specifically tortoises, man? Because some people just have a couple and then they go way off and do all the other aquatics, but you really stuck to that niche.
Yeah, I kind of explained earlier, but more I got into the tortoises from a childhood friend. I found a tortoise in his yard, and that was what kind of started it. But I guess more generally speaking, just tortoises are super easy to keep. Man. They're very low maintenance. They're fun, and I guess there's something kind of like therapeutic about them. I guess you could say, where I'll go outside to look at my tortoises, and I'll feed them and see them walking around, and something about it, it just kind of calms me down, and I'm able to relax and kind of just watch them do their thing, and it's almost like meditation or kind of therapeutic for me. I love it. I don't know.
It's like almost like they're not in a hurry, so why do I need to be in a hurry? Like, slow down, man. Like, take a page out of their book.
Yeah.
Hey, that feeling that you mentioned is pretty much the same reason I keep turtles, man. Like, I like to see, as corny as it sounds, like my favorite part is actually seeing the turtles swimming around. Like, it just seems so stress free. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, dude, the water, man. Like, I like going in my 10 by 20, pool and just hearing the water, man. I can sit down there with a, fold up chair and just be like,
it's awesome. Just seeing them do their thing, and that's why I like keeping them outside, because I kind of like to see them very in a naturalistic setting, and it's just fun to watch them. And sometimes I talk to them, and none have talked back yet, but maybe one day.
I do have a question for you. And then, if you don't mind, I'm going to post another viewer question.
Sure.
My question is, how have you enjoyed adding Instagram to your platform that you work with? And then, do you have any plans to like start a YouTube channel or anything? Because I say this, your video has this podcast rather has had the most consistent number of views watching live. So I also say that to say, when you shared the page about you being on the podcast, I had 30 people go and like the page at least. So for me, that kind of speaks volumes that maybe you could go into that realm if that's something you wanted to do, just being that guy.
Yeah. That's all. Those are great questions. I started just with the Facebook, and then out of nowhere, I kind of was just like, why don't I start an Instagram? I don't know why I haven't. And I've only had my Instagram up and for about probably maybe a year and a half. I've had the Facebook for probably 2.5, maybe almost 3 years now. And I've had my Instagram for about a year and a half. And the Instagram has just, I think, blown right by the Facebook. I think I have like maybe 13,000 followers now on that. And it went fast, man. It really, really did. And I guess just, I've been blessed just posting the content. People have just found it, and I guess they love it, and it hasn't really been much that I've done. I guess it's been the animals, and but yeah, and I get a lot of people that say, like, when are you going to start posting YouTube videos? And I think probably in the next month or two, I might start doing more, because I do a lot of quick videos, maybe about a minute or less, 30 seconds to a minute. So I'm looking to start doing more long-term videos about certain topics, and maybe from 10 to 15 minutes, and maybe a couple longer, like 30-minute videos, but it'll be more like 10 to 15 minutes. I don't want to bore anybody, but I think that
you might be surprised, man.
Yeah,
you might be surprised. We had an hour and 40-minute podcast once, and
Oh
You
wow.
know, some people, if they're interested, man, they'll sit and they'll listen. I mean, I have comments that are like, here, I'll show you one. So I'm assuming this is aimed more towards you doing something. Phyllis, for if you didn't know, What the Shell podcast is a weekly event that we do weekly. And Ryan is our guest, obviously, although, you know, this is all about him today. But man, I think you should figure out a way to get some of that content. I mean, I'm not going to lie. You mentioned Garden State Tortoise earlier and Chris Leone, and he'll be on the show eventually. I haven't booked, but like, I love watching his videos, man. Like,
Yeah.
there's something about watching turtles and tortoises and, you know, seeing cool setups, you know, and
Yeah, it really is awesome. Yeah, that especially the naturalistic stuff. And Chris Leone does like he's like a pioneer to me anyway. He's like a pioneer for this whole thing. And yeah, I see some of his videos and he goes above and beyond with the, you know, the naturalistic enclosures with, you know, streams running through, mimicking, you know, the setups for like North American wood turtles and spotted
right.
turtles and things like that, and blandings and all these different protected species. And yeah, man, he's a good dude. And I mentioned him earlier. I got my Russian tortoises from him, and he's just an all around great guy. But yeah, I'm definitely going to try to get into the YouTube side of things and just start slow and work my way into it. And I've just been blessed, man. It's been a lot of it's probably been God and just following passion of mine, and that's all, you know. So
Yeah, and you get to, like how you said, you know, you get to show that more realistic things that most people why would a tortoise or whatever would need something like that? But it's like you see that and it's like that's just cool, you know. Not only do they get so much more enrichment out of it, but you do as well. And it's like if you can inspire someone just to just expand your you know your just perspective on keeping and not
yeah,
just box, you
yeah,
know, tub, but
yeah.
expand your keeping, man, and have fun with it. Like
I
that's the
love
most
it.
beautiful thing. Cody can vouch. I mean, you know, getting some mangroves and throwing some mangroves in a natural kind of thing for terrapins, or just doing things that it's, you know, have fun. And it's only going to benefit them. And if,
Yeah,
you know,
I saw that, Cody, on your page earlier when I looked at your page. I saw that you planted some, I think it was like red mangroves or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's why I try to plant a lot of stuff that they not only looks good, but also they can eat at the same time, which is there's nothing cooler than like a mango or a papaya falling off of a tree and you see your tortoises walk up and
that
eat
would be
it.
so
Like
awesome.
Right.
having, you know, a self, you know, feeding system. It's awesome. And
Can't go to Missouri.
I recently was pretty, I was blessed. I got to fly up to Illinois to Robert Cross's house, and he's kind of a pioneer in the turtle and tortoise hobby, and he opened and owned like 20 pet stores up north, and one of them was like one of the biggest pet stores in the United States. And he invited me out to his house, and it was awesome, man. He lives on like 50 acres with and he has a 7-acre pond in his backyard, and it's just amazing, man. It was like staying in like a state park. It was insane. There were deer walking around everywhere, and what he does is the Midland painted turtles that are you know, they're naturally found up in Illinois. They hundreds of them come out every year and lay eggs in his backyard and front yard of his house, and he kind of cages the eggs similar to what they do with sea turtles, and basically there's gaps in the cage big enough that the hatchlings can get out, but predators can't get in and eat the eggs. So it's pretty
That's
cool.
awesome.
So yeah, the raccoons can't, you know, predate the nests, and these hatchlings have a little bit more of a chance of survival. It's really really neat. So and we got to stay out there. Me and my dad actually flew up there, and it was quite an experience. And you want to talk about naturalistic setups? He had probably a 10-foot high waterfall coming down with a stream that runs through his little patio area next to the pond, the 7-acre pond. it was just amazing, man. All decked out with lily pads and all kinds of aquatic plants, and it was just a killer setup. And I'm looking forward to doing some things with him in the future, and getting some more tortoises from him. And I'm going to be getting a group of spider tortoises from him, which I already have some spider tortoises now, but he's actually going to be kind of moving a group of 4.5 all proven adult spider tortoises over to me, and not for free, but he's definitely helping me out in a lot of ways by giving that and kind of continuing this legacy and these tortoises that he started, this group of proven breeders. So it's a cool experience.
It's so great that you get to actually also be a part of a generational kind of outlook of it, and and then, just looking at you, and your kids and stuff like that, me and Cody talk all the time about our kids and stuff, and we want to just pass it down.
Yeah, my son's already got, I'm trying to plant the seed early. He's already got little turtle stuffed animals and little pajama shirts that have turtles on them and everything. But at the end of the day, whatever.
I found, not to cut you off, I found the way I got my daughter involved. How old is your son?
He's 8 months.
Okay, so I guess I'm the one with the oldest child here. My daughter's 4.
Okay.
The way I got her most excited, and I will say she actually prefers snakes over turtles, which is crazy because I don't like snakes. I don't own a snake. But that seems to be her interest. But she does love turtles. And the way I got her really involved was she got to name baby turtles for me, and also feeding. Ed will also tell you his daughter, just having them around during feeding time. My daughter's 4th birthday party was in June, and she had some friends come over, and they all wanted to see the turtle setups and stuff. So I thought I was going to go be, show and tell. I was completely wrong. My daughter led everything. She knew all the turtles' names. This is
like, I got to be quiet.
Yeah, she was like, this is the mommy turtle, and she's bigger than the daddy turtle, just things you don't even think about, And
cool,
so,
man.
I highly encourage it, man. I highly encourage it.
And my daughter's 16 months old was actually even doing stuff like that, man. Like, I just did that show on Wednesday, my first book reading at a daycare, her old daycare. I did a book reading with my children's book I published, and dude, she came out of nowhere and just stood right by my side where all these other kids are coming up and trying to reach and touch, and she's just like hovering over, like, yeah, I heard, what's the big deal? I see this all the time.
Yeah, but I hope my son, loves it. If he doesn't, at the end of the day, it's if it's not his passion, it's not his passion. But I think he'll appreciate it either way. My wife has developed a love for it. I mean, it's hilarious. I went out of town, like I just said, up to Illinois, and I got back, and my wife's like, she takes care of the incubator while I'm gone, and she's like, I walk in the door and I don't even have to ask her, like, has anything hatched? She's like, you had a cherry head hatch out and 4 redfoots hatch out. I moved them onto some sphagnum moss, and I'm soaking the pancake tortoise that hatched out a few days ago. And she's great, and she knows it all.
Hey, I got to share this because it's timing wise.
Okay. My daughter is 12 and obsessed now because of Ryan's redfoots I just received. Now she wants to be an exotic vet because of this. Well, I hope she can get some grants and things like that. So I think it might be an expensive bill to put her through vet school. But hey, man, if she gets into, I actually, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a vet, man, and I wanted to do something that worked with that. I wanted to work with animals, and I think this is actually is better in some ways, but yeah, it's a great business to get into.
Yeah, and you're in a rare niche that, we briefly on with Anthony last week, said, it's very, 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 very uncommon to be able to do something like that, full time and actually be sustainable. And you're doing it, and you're doing it with a passion, with the right heart and full steam ahead. And and so it's hats off to you, man, because obviously, people just, they come in and out and have aspirations, but and the second they realize what they're really in for, they jump ship. So
Yeah, and I've had a few people that ask me. People will ask me what I do for work, and it's funny sometimes the faces people make when I tell. Sometimes I'll just say I work with exotic animals, or I'll say I import or I take care of animals. But sometimes I tell people I breed and I sell turtles and tortoises, and they're like, "Wait, what?" Like, they don't know that. It's a big hobby and a big business, just like dogs and cats and other animals. It's a big industry. But yeah, I like being able to apply like the conservation side, the hobby side, and the business side like all into one, and that's kind of my goal ultimately, is to have kind of equal parts of all of that at the end of the day. So
I do want to provide the viewers, because this podcast has had a lot of viewer interaction, to be able to ask some of their questions. This question was asked about 20 minutes ago, so I apologize, Crystal. But this question is for you, man.
okay, how do you introduce your turtles when you get new ones? I'm assuming she means introduce them to like different groups of turtles or tortoises. Basically, it kind of depends on the sex. I mean, if it's like, for instance, I already had a male pancake tortoise, and I got another group of pancakes. And when I introduced the male pancake tortoises will literally fight to the death when you put them together. It's insane. Like they will battle it out until.
I don't want to seem outlandish, but what does a tortoise fight look like? Like,
especially a pancake, they're just
yeah.
without getting too
I'm
graphic.
thinking IHOP right here, man.
Yeah, the pancake tortoises, man, they'll grab each other and they'll bite. One will bite the other and basically drag it and ram across the enclosure and slam it and then flip it over, and then we'll kind of just do circles around it and biting it. So obviously I can't let that happen. So
Right.
I supervise usually because like I spoke on before, that competition, it's good for breeding and fertility and things like that. But I have to keep my male pancake tortoises separate, two separate pancake enclosures because of that. So to go, circle back around to the question, it depends on the species and the sex. Sometimes with redfoots, you should always quarantine an animal if you don't know if it's coming from. If it's coming from a good friend of yours, and you know how they keep their animals, and they're healthy and things like that, that's one thing. But if you go and buy a turtle from the pet store and you don't know how it's been cared for, then you might want to. It's a good idea to quarantine it for at least a month and just look for any kinds of signs of sickness or anything like that. And then once they kind of meet the standards and they're past that quarantine time, put the turtle in with your other turtles, or the tortoise in with your other tortoises, and just kind of supervise for the first couple hours and make sure. And sometimes they can be a little aggressive in the beginning, but then once they get to know each other, or once the one male kind of establishes dominance over the other, they kind of fit into their places, and the hierarchy and everything just kind of works itself out, and you can keep them together. So, and also just having multiple females to keep the males distracted can help too.
Doesn't it even also come into play as far as space wise and obstacles and distractions and having enrichment stuff like that, to where, I've always been taught, if you keep, many turtles, and if you don't keep enrichments or blocks or just things in their enclosure, nowhere to escape, or to just if they're always looking at each other, well, what do you expect them to do?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. I like to do a lot of hide areas and a lot of just visual barriers and enclosures. If you don't have unlimited space, it's a great idea to do a lot of visual barriers, because even though you're taking up space to put in these barriers, like like fountain grasses and things like that, you're just creating kind of more areas where they can be, where they're not in each other's line of vision 24/7, so they can get away from each other. And having those makes the enclosure kind of feel bigger in some ways, I think.
Yeah.
All right, I got another question for you from the viewers. I think we are a little over an hour, so I'll probably take 2 or 3 more questions and we'll wrap it up. How does that sound to you guys?
That sounds fine.
All right, here you go. Next question.
How long before you know if your Herman's tortoise is a girl or a boy? Well, just to kind of preface that question, a lot of the time, some sellers they'll tell people, if you pay $10, we'll sell you a male, or if you pay a fee, we'll give you a male or a female. It's not true. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not true. And so people will email me and say, I want a hatchling turtle and I want a male. Can you give me a male? And I tell them, I can sell you a hatchling, but I cannot guarantee that it's going to be a male or a female. You can incubate at certain temperatures, which will usually increase the amount of one sex or the other, but it's not going to make it all males, all females. It's just not going to happen. So if anyone tells you that they can guarantee you a male or a female hatchling, unless they're doing some kind of like endoscopic thing or DNA testing, it's probably not true. So at the age that you're able to tell, I think I mentioned it before, for most species, it's usually around 4 years old is like a good mark. So usually males will show signs of being male a little bit earlier than a female will show signs of being female. So it's usually around 4, sometimes as early as 2 or 3 years old, sometimes as late as 5 years old.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. I think I messaged you about the map turtles that I have, and so I have 3 hatchling ringed map turtles. And if you didn't know, they're one of the ESA species.
Very
and,
cool. Yeah. Awesome.
I can only sell them here in Florida, obviously. And so the reason I was asking is because I have this fear that I have 3 males. So they're less than a year old, but I'm not sure how much you know about aquatic turtles, and some species do the little dance. So
I do. Yeah, I know. And they typically will have longer nails on the front feet too. I don't know if that's for that species, but
so these guys are only about this big max.
That's crazy to do that young.
And one of them was doing the dance. So I'm like, all right, I have at least one male, because the females aren't going to do the dance typically. Mm-hmm. Well, last night I woke up in the middle of the night and I turned on my kitchen light, and 2 of them were doing it at each other. I'm like, all right, that's 2 out of 3 now. Okay. I don't want to end up with 3 turtles that I can't do anything with. Like, I love them, but that was primarily the reason I asked. And so I think sometimes you end up getting surprised. I know with like Ed and I primarily work with aquatic turtles. Sometimes you get flashed and you're like, well, that's a male.
There it goes. Yeah.
Do tortoises also flash?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And it's so funny you bring that whole thing up, because it's kind of crazy, because a lot of people they'll message me and say, you know, my tortoise is mounting the other tortoise. Now I know I have a male, but that is not guaranteed. Just in the last couple of weeks, I've had about 4 different female tortoises that I know 100% are female. They've laid eggs for me, and they have been mounting other females the same exact way a male does it. Most people say it's a sign of dominance that they do that. And like I said, there's no question these are 100% females. And it was a Russian tortoise one time, a cherry head another, and a pancake tortoise another time. So 3 different species there. And they were proven females mounting on the back other female tortoises. So that's not even always a dead giveaway, the mounting. But yeah, the flashing is a definite giveaway. And sometimes you can, don't flip your tortoise over too long. But if you hold the tortoise a certain way, especially while soaking it, they'll when they're kind of pushing to kind of try and get out of your hand, they'll often flash you that way, and you can tell with a younger, say like a juvenile tortoise.
Wow, you've definitely been a wealth of information today. I don't have any further questions. We didn't get another question. We got some comments. Do you have any further questions before we wrap it up, Ed?
No, that's solid. I mean, yeah, you already hit the main one earlier about the whole ultimate goal without me even have to ask. So you got me there.
No, man, I'm glad. I don't know if you know this, Ryan, but this is our last Friday podcast. So we're actually switching to Tuesdays, and that's going to start this coming Tuesday. So it's going to be a busy 4 days, 2 podcasts in 4 days.
Wow.
And I'm thankful that the other guest that we have for Tuesday is actually also a reptile store owner. He has a reptile store. So that's pretty cool to get 2 people in the business and
Cool.
Deal with that. But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on, Ryan. If there's a time, that would be now. If you want to share how people can follow you, get in contact with you, purchase from you, any of those things, go ahead, man. This is your chance.
Yeah, if you guys, if you want to check out my Facebook, which you might already know if you're on it, but if you're on Swamp Life Reptiles, then you can go on mine. It's facebook.com/Southern Reptiles, and my Instagram is instagram.com/The Southern Reptiles, not Southern Reptiles, but The Southern Reptiles, and my website is southernreptiles.net. And yeah, that's about it. And I really appreciate you guys having me on, and it's cool to I could sit and talk about turtles and tortoises for hours. So giving me a platform, I'll definitely take advantage of it for sure.
Take a drive down or something. You're only about probably an hour and a half, maybe.
Yeah, man, definitely hit me up and let me know, and maybe you could come drop off that food and show you.
Actually, I was just down there the other day and for work, so.
Yeah, and I'll show you some of my tortoises.
Come on now, my wife actually loves. She's ever since I got the leopard. Actually, is hers, I put a little bow on her for Christmas, everything, and she loved it. So, like, obviously, I got her hooked on the tortoises. She loves the tortoises, so I've been thinking about needing to get another one or a couple more. I love them, man. Like you said, they're a lot easier to take care of, especially early on.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So
yeah, well, thank you guys, and I'm always I would love to come on in the future, and
sure, man.
No, definitely, man. Do like a live, maybe where you're at. That would be pretty cool too. So
yeah, I was telling them earlier how we kind of set it up to do profiles for our guests and then have them come on. We might get to a point where we really want to have a podcast about one of these tortoise species that he works with in husbandry and how to keep them in Florida, different things. We did get a wealth of comments and things today. I will end with this comment, and this is for you, Ryan, just throwing the bug back in your ear. This was our last comment so far.
Okay. Ryan, definitely need your YouTube channel. All right. Yeah, I'm going to be setting one up probably in the next few weeks. So I'll definitely post it up on my page when I do. And thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it, and have a good night.
Right on, brother. Man. Keep dreaming.
There we go. Guys, this has been our last Friday What the Shell podcast.
What the?
Oh, I got it. There we go.
Shell. Come on now.
Please don't forget.
Early on.
I did it, but I had to answer myself. I was like, what the hell?
Left me hanging. I'm sorry, brother.
It's all right, man. We got family, we got kids, and they definitely come first. But man, I'm probably going to be drained after Tuesday's podcast. Ryan, if you didn't know, I do live in Florida. I'm in Gainesville, way north of you. But I'm actually currently in Alabama. I had to go visit one of my friends. So I drove to Alabama this morning. I'm an hour behind you guys figuring this out. And then Tuesday, we're doing another podcast. So it's going to be an interesting week, man. But hey, you've definitely ended this current week in a good way, man. And I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Yeah, stay safe with this hurricane coming through. I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully it skirts right past us and just kind of turns back out into the ocean. That'd be great.
Amen.
Yeah, I didn't even get to ask you, and I know we're at the end, but I am curious. What do you do when hurricanes and storms come with 100 and something tortoises?
I'm lucky that I have a pretty decent sized garage that basically everybody kind of temporarily just goes in large storage containers, like big Tupperware containers, and they'll just come inside. And yeah, it's not an easy process by any means. And I try to kind of get them in at the last minute and get them back outside as quickly as possible, as long as everything's safe. And fingers crossed, things have been good for a little while. So I hope it stays that way.
Never easy.
No, that's about what I do with my aquatic species too. So
Yeah.
my wife is if things get sour up in North Florida, she's going to be on turtle fishing duty.
Okay.
So guys, we're at the end. We appreciate it. Thanks for all the viewers we've had. Thanks for all the likes. And I'm not sure what the heart is. Loves. Thanks for the loves. And guys, we are at the end. We will see you on Tuesday.
All right.
Peace.
Have a good night.